I asked Ben if he'd go on a walk with me the other morning, and then my daughter, Iana, wanted to go too. And somehow in this walk, Ben decided it was a great time to tell our daughter that she needs to embrace being a lady a little bit more because she's a lot more like me, which is not so much a lady, but I'm not like not a lady, but I'm not.
You kick my butt. I think you're a lady. I mean, compared to me and my house.
Well, for Ben, who likes Gucci and Louis Vuitton and matching, it was not received well because Iana and I were busting up laughing the entire time. Every time he said be a lady, we laughed out loud at him. But I'm telling you this because the same night, this lady in the making, my daughter, who is more like me lady, she said something that I really wanted to share with you, Sher. As I was talking about my childhood, she said, your parents were divorced. They were divorced. And I said, I told you this before. And she said, I should know this about the person who's breastfed me. And I was like, you know, she is a lady.
I'm making my way through the drip, drip, drop.
Lady, a noun, a woman of refinement and gentle manners. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sydney and Sher podcast.
That was so ladylike, the way you said that.
Thanks, I'm super refined. I did want to be a lady. I did. I think I've talked about this before because when I was growing up, I just really admired my cousin who was so graceful and organic and sun-kissed tanned and beautiful. And I was just like, I don't know where my shoes are. I'm wearing like a freaking paper bag for a dress. And I was not a lady. Well, okay, there are ladies in my family line. Like lady of the night. Just kidding.
Anyway, Sydney, let's start by just reviewing what we've been talking about this month. We've been discussing knowledge and wisdom and how early Americans understood true wisdom was not possible without including God. So they embraced the teachings of God in schools. And they also understood that wisdom is what would bring peace, harmony, and happiness to a society and to our culture. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 13 through 20, it says, happy is the man that findeth wisdom and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things that thou can desire are not to be compared unto her. Length of days in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retaineth her. The Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth. By understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop the dew. So from these scriptures, we learn that gaining knowledge and wisdom creates happiness. It's better than riches, that the Lord used knowledge and wisdom to create the earth. So it's sort of important. So if this was the plan in early America, was to gain wisdom and include God in the schools, they knew that we needed teachers that supported this view. And so today we wanted to talk about teachers that have changed America. As we're talking today, we want you to please think about teachers that have influenced you. And so just real quick, I want to give a shout out to a few of my teachers. Miss Smith, who believed I could write, Miss Mousley, who believed I could be a public speaker, Mr. Nance, who taught me how to play the guitar, Miss Creek, who sent me a postcard while she was on vacation in Germany and thanked me for being a good student, Mr. Wilson, who loved that I loved history, Dr. Hilton, who the poor man taught me for 4 years in college, and my teacher mentors, Mr. Gorley and Miss Isaacson, who literally drugged me through my first years of teaching, and two of my coworkers that I have worked with, Sydney, for over 20 years, and they've pushed me every single year to be a better teacher, and that's Miss Monroe and Miss Allen. I just want to thank all of them for being such amazing examples and caring so much about your craft that you influenced me, a lot of fellow teachers, and definitely the students that you taught.
And look at you now as a teacher. You're on someone's list out there, not mine.
It's probably on the bad list.
No, you're not.
Teachers that ruined my life.
Reasons why I'm not a teacher. Your list is impressive. I can't believe you got a postcard from Germany.
I did. It was amazing. I was so excited.
It's wild because she was on vacation and thought about a student.
I found out later she sent them to everyone in her class, but that's beside the point.
I bet there's one or two people left out. Someone probably just found out right now that they were left out of that.
Probably.
So you probably just ruined someone's day. Well, I will always have the same two teachers that forever have a place in my heart. And it's Miss Scholl from third grade. She took me in like her own daughter, and Miss Pam Jones, who somehow still listens. So thank you, Pam. I loved her from the very beginning. Some of my childhood memories that are positive have Pam Jones in them. She is so cool. She was the best example of a woman of God I'd want to be. She's hilarious and a little irreverent, but loved God.
That is perfect.
And most recently, I was thinking that my kids are also teachers. They're constantly telling me things and telling me how to say stuff and who to be. And also they just, let me know what I don't know.
That was quite the face you just gave.
It's just that I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. So they have a lot of opinions. Sigh, heavy sigh. Sigh, a verb, to take a deep audible breath, to make a sound like sighing.
Let me just tell you, Sydney is on a roll with her definitions already today, because the first teacher we're going to talk about is known as the schoolmaster of America, and it's Noah Webster, who, as Sydney has figured out, wrote the first American dictionary.
Did you know that he actually wrote two? The second one took 26 years to complete, and he learned 28 languages.
Oh my goodness.
I just wrote down a few of the languages because my mind is blown with this. Gothic, German, Greek, Italian, Spanish, French, Russian, Dutch, and Hebrew. But there was more.
I was just grateful that he wrote the dictionary so he could spell words correctly, like the words color.
He was a simple man. He's like, take the U out. And then he changed also R-E to E-R.
Yeah, theater, center.
Which makes so much more sense.
Makes so much more sense. Everyone in Britain right now is like, they're the ones who had the language first. They just shared it with us and we changed it a tad bit. That's okay, right?
He did add some words that had never been in a dictionary before, like skunk.
That wasn't in the dictionary?
No, it was the first time it was in a dictionary was with his second edition. But also, before you actually teach us something, I just wanted to say that he was a man of honor because he took out vulgar words. He left out words like arse, bum, fart, and turd.
All right. Well, moving on, why he is called the schoolmaster of America is because Noah Webster wrote the Webster Speller, which we talked about in last week's episode. This is also known as the blue-backed speller, and it literally taught millions of American kids how to read, and it was all based on biblical principles. This book was used in our schools for about 100 years before it started to be phased out in the early 1900s.
But you know what's crazy about that is he only sold 25,000 copies, and he had to take out a mortgage on his home because he was in such great debt, and he lived his whole life in debt.
Really? I didn't know that. How come he only sold that many copies of it? Do you know?
I think it was because people were like, what are we going to do with these words? We don't need words. I don't know. That's ridiculous.
Okay. Webster believed that education is useless without the Bible. So just so we're clear, he believed that knowledge and wisdom was absolutely useless unless you included God. And that is exactly what our founders believed. So this speller, it promoted biblical principles along with morals, religion, and civic duty. His blue-backed speller had words in it that students would learn, and then they put those words into sentences. And then students would practice reading them, saying them out loud, as well as spelling them. So examples were things like, no man may put off the law of God, or God will bless them that keep his law. Another one is, it is the duty of all men to serve their country. And one more, good boys and girls will love to learn. These were the kind of sentences and phrases that students were learning how to read with, as well as how to spell with.
The good boys wouldn't work at all today because you can't say good boy now anymore. It's actually very negative. Like you are in control of that person. You're a dog, which has ruined my life because when I tell my children that they're doing a good job, they're like, you're so mean. Just can't keep up.
You can't. You just can't keep up.
And furthermore, could we just do a shout out to all the math teachers today? Because that whole 6-7 that's going around that all the kids say 6-7. My children have said the math classes both in high school and also in middle school, are out of control. Anytime a teacher writes 6-7, the whole class erupts in laughter.
What is it? I don't know what it is.
I've looked up 6-7 and what it means so many times, and I'm still very confused, but it's from a song that just caught on. It doesn't really mean anything, but they say it all of the time. So it doesn't have like if your kid's saying it, they're not like into drugs. Well, I mean, they might be, but not because they're saying 6-7. But it's not a secret code for something you've got to be worried about. It's just something that's disruptive. I hope I'm not wrong, because what if it was horrible?
If it's horrible, we apologize that we just said it multiple times.
6-7, 6-7, 6-7. But I just have a lot of compassion for all math teachers who have to write a 6 or a 7 on a board, which is really difficult.
Do you have compassion to teachers that taught American history and had to hear America over and over again?
No, I think that one just feels right. America.
That just is like nails
You don't
on
like
a chalkboard.
It?
No,
I have it in my notes to say it. So I really am one of your students.
Oh my gosh, I heard it so many times. It's not funny and it's just annoying now.
Because it lacks respect.
No, it's like saying the same thing over and over again. I just heard it so many times that.
How many times did you hear it? Like 6 or 7?
Like 5,277,000, not 6 or 7. All right. The one that got me with the good boys and girls will love to learn, that's something that I feel really sad about, is there's a part of our culture that does not think it's cool to learn anymore. They think it's cool to be stupid and to get bad grades. I don't understand why we have that in our culture, because that doesn't help you as a person. Talk about Satan getting hold of culture and making it so that people keep themselves down by thinking that not learning and not choosing to do well in school is somehow cool. Cool runs out. I always tell my students that. What are you going to do when you're not cool anymore? You can't live on cool.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Like a podcast? But really, he was ahead of his time with the positive affirmations. Good boys and good girls will love to learn. It's one of my personal affirmations daily. I say it 6 or 7 times.
Well, moving on from personal affirmations, Webster believed, this is a quote from him, that all the miseries and evils which men suffer from vice, crime, ambition, injustice, oppression, slavery, and war proceed from their despising or neglecting the precepts contained in the Bible. He believed that studying and living the precepts of the Bible would solve the issues of crime, inequality, oppression, and in his time, slavery, along with war. And Webster was an abolitionist, and he tried to end slavery during his lifetime. So what he's saying is that the slave owners, they needed to study the Bible, and further, that men and women that cause others to suffer do not understand the principles taught in the Bible, which is true. And that's what he wanted to teach in school. This is how America learned for about 100 years, and then we threw it all out in the early 1900s. But I think as people of faith, we know we need to still teach these biblical principles. We need to teach this to our children and to each other as much as possible so that we continue to have a society that's peaceful.
When it comes to learning for myself, I really like to see the person we're studying as a real person. So I have to tell you a few things about him that I learned that I loved so much, because he was a quirky and odd dude. Did you know? He's so odd.
No,
I loved it.
I want to know about it.
Well, one of the first facts I found about him across several articles is that he personally counted all the houses in every town he visited.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's some OCD, my friend. OCD, abbreviation or noun, a chronic disorder characterized by recurrent obsessions or compulsions or both that can cause significant distress.
Thank you, Sydney.
I wish you knew the delight I got in doing that. It's so funny to me. Also, he really let George Washington have it one night at a dinner party, because George Washington said he really wanted a Scottish tutor for his grandson. And Noah Webster said to this war hero, "You need to get an American for that job. Merca." That's what he said after that.
Oh, thank you for that.
I also loved that Webster hated Shakespeare, complaining his language was full of errors.
It's because he spelled the word color wrong.
He also got dumped several times. And when he finally got a woman to agree to marry him, his love letter said something of the sort of, "I do not believe I am fit for society." And I just really loved that because it was so honest and pure. So learning about him personally, I really became a huge fan because he's so quirky.
All right. The next teacher we want to talk about is Catherine Beecher. She was born in 1800, and she is the sister to Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe, we've talked about her in previous episodes, wrote the book Uncle Tom's Cabin. Abraham Lincoln gave Harriet Beecher Stowe credit for giving Americans the courage to fight in the Civil War to free the slaves. So she's a very important person in our history. And Catherine Beecher, she is important because she believed that women were called to be teachers. She founded the Hartford Female Seminary in 1823, and she advocated for teaching as a sacred calling for women. She believed women could connect home, morals, and education at school. And she further believed that this was a woman's God-given natural gift. Women were natural moral leaders that could shape the happiness of family and communities through teaching. She is the reason so many women now are teachers. She opened the door for women like me to become teachers. But I have to give all the pros and cons. Here's the negative, or, you can use your own judgment and decide if it's a negative or not. She opposed women voting. She believed that the political sphere was too corrupt, contentious, and degrading for women. So what Beecher believed is that there were separate spheres for men and women. Men should be in the public life, in government, in business, and women, their greatest power was in shaping society through education, religion, and the home. And she wrote a book called An Essay on the Education of Female Teachers. She argued in that book that women's moral authority was more valuable than political rights. She further said that women already had a higher calling in shaping the nation's morals and character through teaching and motherhood, and believed that politics would be too distracting and take them away from their God-given role. So you decide if you agree or disagree with her. But I do want to end with something that hopefully everyone will like. I'm going to paraphrase, but it's still kind of long. She said, "No American woman, then, has any occasion for feeling that hers is an humble or insignificant lot. The value of what an individual accomplishes is to be estimated by the importance of the enterprise achieved and not by the particular position of the laborer. The drops of heaven that freshen the earth are each of equal value, whether they fall in the lowland or the meadow. Thus, the woman who is rearing a family of children, the woman who labors in the schoolroom," and then she listed a bunch of other jobs and roles that women have, "whose example and influence may be molding and forming young minds, each and all may be cheered by the consciousness that they are agents in accomplishing the greatest work that ever was committed to human responsibility. It is the building of a glorious temple, whose base shall be coextensive with the bounds of the earth, whose summit shall pierce the skies, whose splendor shall beam on all lands, and those who hew the lowliest stone, as much as those who carve the highest capital, will be equally honored when its top stone shall be laid, with new rejoicings of the morning stars and the shoutings of the sons of God." So agree or disagree with all of Catherine Beecher's political views, this was a woman who understood the importance of women in education, religion, and the home. And she believed that all women teaching children were doing the most valuable and precious work. This was a gift from God. And God loves all women who help him build his kingdom, no matter where they have worked in their life, at the top of the temple or the bottom. It was all just as important and necessary. And I'm a fan of hers just because she opened the door for women to become teachers.
She was more difficult to find fun facts about. She seems more serious. And I listened to several historians talk about her. And I'm going to be honest, some of the women professors who speak about her have a certain tone when they talk about her because of some of her very conservative beliefs.
Yeah, I can see why she's not well liked.
She's left out of history a lot because of how she believed, women ought to stay in the house and in the kitchen. But what's interesting about her is that she was engaged to get married, and the man she was engaged to, he died at sea. She never got married. There's letters where she talks about making a decision. Do I get engaged again? Or The way one professor talked about it, I laughed because it sounded like Catherine knew God got her out of it once and she wasn't so sure he'd get her out of it again. So she chose to focus on her career of teaching only. Also with the school she started out with just 7 students her first year. And by the end of 3 years, she had over 100 students, which made me think of us, Sher. Like, we started off with 7 listeners and maybe one day we'll have 100.
Maybe.
But she was kind of contradictive, though, in a lot of ways, because she wasn't married and she didn't have children, but she was very big on women staying in their homes and being mothers, which I was wondering, maybe she was having such a good time that she didn't want anyone to ruin it. Let's keep this life a secret. That it's so nice. You guys just stay home. And she was like traveling and living the best life. So I thought, what if she was devious like that? But she probably wasn't. But as much as she was all about the homemaker life for women, and I understand why. It's the age old, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. And I love a lot of her philosophy because she said women, like you've said, are great and excellent and better teachers. But if that's the case, then they need to be educated so that they could properly raise good people. And I do like that. But one thing about her that kind of contradicts everything else is one class she would not allow into her schools was the decorative arts class for women. Now, this class was to help you to get married. It was to learn how to dance and sing and sew, which is 100% the way I got Ben. It's by dancing and sewing. I'm honestly like the master professor in decorative arts. I'm just that kind of lady.
Sydney's delusional right now.
Ben's like, fine, I'll marry you, but never dance again. That's how it really happened. So I think all of this is kind of funny and it just makes her a real person. And also that you change over time a little bit, that sometimes you might have a belief that you're really passionate about. And as the years go on and the world changes and your experience, they will alter how you feel and what you believe. And that's okay. That's human. That's actually growth most of the time. Okay, but what I found inspiring with her and what she taught was that she really felt like when you're staying home to run it like a business, to not just slack off, but to give it everything. And I think that's really beautiful. It made me feel really empowered and to take it seriously what I'm doing because it really matters, not just to mindlessly get through each day, but to give it everything. What you're doing can shape the world. And I really found that to be really inspiring and beautiful, the way that she talked about that. One more thing about her that I think is important is for a long time, it was men who wrote articles on how to be a good housewife, which has really impacted my life so much. It's what I turn to. Every morning I wake up and I make fresh muffins and I read the Holy Word and then I read The Good Wife's Guide written by a man.
Please don't read it, Sydney.
Oh, I'm going to read just some of them.
I can already feel my blood pressure.
No, this is going to help so many people.
Okay.
If you're going to be a good wife written by a man, you should have dinner ready. Plan ahead, even the night before.
Sydney's not going to make it through.
Prepare yourself. Take 15 minutes to rest so you'll be refreshed when he arrives. Gather up school books, toys, paper, etc., and then run a dust cloth over the table.
Do the kids have to help clean up or is it just
only
the
the girls? The boy kids shouldn't.
Okay.
Speaking of children, prepare the children. Take a few minutes to wash the children's hands and faces if they are small, comb their hair, and if necessary, change their clothes. Be happy to see him. Greet him with a warm smile and show sincerity. Listen to him. You may have had a dozen important things to tell him, but the moment of his arrival is not the time. Don't greet him with complaints or problems. I'm doing this so wrong. As soon as he walks in the door, I greet him with complaints and problems. Don't ask him questions about his actions. Make him comfortable. And a good wife always knows her place.
Oh, my word.
So to all the historians who really have a problem with Catherine, dude, she came in and changed it up. She was like, you guys have power. And I do not want to see you dancing and singing and sewing. We're better than this. But also those things are important. And I appreciate my friends who can do those. But not me.
All right. We're going to talk about one more teacher. And this one is Booker T. Washington. He is one of my favorites. And I know I've mentioned him quite a few times before. But he was born a slave in Virginia, and he wanted to go to college, but he didn't have a way to get there. So he walked 500 miles to the Hampton Institute. In his autobiography, he said that when he was 16 years old, he walked these 500 miles from his home to attend this college. Along the way, he worked odd jobs, he begged for food, and he slept outdoors. And when he finally arrived at Hampton, he was a dirty mess. But the teachers admitted him after he proved his character by cleaning a room so thoroughly that they said it could not be improved. And this was a female teacher that was inspecting this room, and she was so impressed by his dedication, humility, and willingness to work hard, she said, we need to take him in. And he believes schools should blend academics, the trades, and moral training. And remember where he came from. He was born a slave, and he believed that character, not circumstances, make the man. I love that. He was all about hard work, integrity, and service. At his school, they taught skills like farming, carpentry, blacksmithing, brickmaking, teaching, nursing. He also believed education was more than books. It meant discipline, hard work, honesty, and moral character. And based on the fact that that's how he got in Hampton College in the first place, based on his humility and hard work of cleaning that room, I would say he was a pretty good example of that. Booker T. Washington is the one who started the Tuskegee Institute. He founded it in 1881, and his students built the school themselves, including they made the bricks, they constructed the buildings, and they grew all the food. And he believed that education could foster leaders and teachers and role models, helping their communities rise out of poverty. What an amazing example he is. Further, he said, the ability to work with one's hands and brain, the knowledge of how to earn a living and conduct life efficiently is the beginning of success for any race or individual. I think that is such great advice. That is something that everyone can do, that we have power and control over our life, of course, with the help of God. I love his example of determination, really, and just solid grit. I love it.
I've always found him incredibly inspiring. It was a podcast we did maybe a year ago where he talked about him, and I find him so inspiring. And one thing I feel all three of these people who are completely different and from different backgrounds is that it isn't just about memorizing, it's learning and applying and gaining the wisdom. And I find it interesting that all three of these people believe this so strongly and present it in such different ways, but it's a core belief, which ultimately leads us to the master teacher.
Absolutely. All three of these individuals, Noah Webster, Catherine Beecher, and Booker T. Washington, they believed that education should be based on the principles that Christ taught us in the Bible. Our Savior, he taught by example, and he taught us how to teach. He asked questions, he listened, he taught people to think. He taught him to think through parables, and he used parables that related to his audience that he was speaking to at the time. He also taught that all of us learn line upon line, showing us that we all learn at our own pace and our own time and in our own way. He teaches us to have patience. He taught us with love and with compassion, and his teachings inspired America's founders and our early educators who understood liberty and happiness are both tied to virtue. So if we want to have peace, harmony, happiness in our society and in our culture, this is what our foundation needs to be built on, is the teachings of our Savior. As I was writing this outline, Sydney, at this point, I realized we don't do any of this at school anymore. So I chose 3 teachers that I thought really influenced American schools, and we threw it all out the window. And then I thought, well, maybe we shouldn't do this episode, or I should find different teachers. Then I realized that the teachers I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, so Miss Allen, Miss Monroe, Miss Smith, Mr. Wilson, Dr. Hilton, all of those teachers and the teachers that you mentioned,
Miss Scholl and Miss Jones, and not to mention the incredible teachers that my children have today.
Absolutely. And I realized that all of the teachers that we just mentioned have different faiths and beliefs, but the thing that they all have in common is they always practice the Savior's commandment to love your neighbor. All of them have showed love, patience, and compassion towards me And this is something all of us can still do. We don't need a school telling us to do this. We can all do this to pass knowledge, wisdom, morals, and biblical principles to children in our lives.
I asked my children who their favorite teacher was in preparation, and they all had top teachers, and all of my children mentioned Miss Bingham.
She's great.
She's so wonderful. And I thought, truly, this does describe how Miss Bingham makes my children feel so loved. All three of them are certain that they are her all-time favorite student that ever existed, along with hundreds of other children who feel the same, because she was so amazing at loving. And the other person always on there is Miss King for all three of my children, that she and Miss Bingham made my children feel so loved. So when you spoke these words, I thought that makes sense as to why my children would mention the same women as favorite teachers.
Those were two good picks, Miss Bingham and Miss King, both awesome teachers and incredible examples.
This week, we would like to challenge you to ready the children, to dust the table, and to prepare a meal, and do not complain for your man. Just kidding. Don't do that. We challenge you to not do that. In honor of Catherine, do not do that. Do not sing and do not dance and do not sew this week. This is our challenge.
That is not our challenge, Sydney.
Okay. Fine. We challenge you to thank a teacher who's meant so much to you. Tell them thank you.
I love that challenge. This brings us to our final thoughts. The true purpose of education goes far beyond memorizing facts or passing tests. Knowledge and wisdom, when rooted in moral principles and guided by God, bring not only understanding, but also happiness, peace, and harmony to individuals and society. Early American educators like Noah Webster, Catherine Beecher, and Booker T. Washington recognized this, shaping lives through teaching that combined intellect, character, and faith. And just like the teachers who influenced me, Miss Smith, Mr. Gorley, Miss Allen, and so many others, they showed that love, patience, and compassion are the heart of true teaching. Jesus Christ, the master teacher, exemplified this in every lesson. All of us can follow his example to teach, guide, and inspire. Even if our schools no longer emphasize biblical principles, we can still pass on knowledge, wisdom, and moral values to the children in our lives. This is our prayer.
From Sydney and Sher.
I'm forging my way through the tip top. I'm living my life through the drip drop. When eternity's plan, I just can't stop. I'm making my way through the drip drop.
I should think of these ahead of time,
That would be helpful.
but I don't want to do that. What if I block inspiration by preparing?
Heaven forbid we do that.
I know. We got to keep like the airways open for God. Okay. Let me just jog in place for 1 second. Okay. I think we're there. We're there. What are you drinking there so heavily after I talk? Why did you pound that way?
I need more than what I have in there. And so today we wanted to talk about teachers that have changed the... Rudy's going to be delightful today.
He's in a mood. I'm trying not to say I think as much because I don't want to lead people astray. I don't want them to have expectations that I was thinking.
No.
Okay.
Of course not.
Okay. So what do I say instead?
It has a then. I just have to say then. I don't know why I can't.
Why did it slip out of my mind? Probably because I was talking too much. Boo. Okay, Sher, I'm going to now tell you that I wanted to tell you the newest words added to the Webster dictionary because I thought Noah would just absolutely collapse with them.
Forget about Noah collapsing. It's probably going to collapse me. Let me have it.
Okay, these are the most recent. Cash grab. It's a noun. The greedy pursuit of an opportunity for making money, especially when done without regard for ethics, concern, or consequences. Nepo baby. A person who gains success or opportunities through family connections, especially a child of a famous parent. I think I'm technically a Nepo baby because my dad was a pig farmer. Touch grass. It is to participate in normal activities in the real world, especially as opposed to online experiences.
Amen to that one.
Hoorah. Goodbye. Noun. A concluding remark or gesture at parting.